Welcome back. The regional workshop on the information ecosystem and elections in Africa is taking place in Windhoek from the 23rd to the 24th of July and aims to enhance the capabilities of election management bodies and observer missions. This workshop is crucial for fostering a common understanding of the AU framework on freedom of expression and access to information, particularly in the context of elections. Joining us for a conversation on the matter is Hlengiwe Dube, Project Manager, Expression, Information and Digital Rights Unit. Hlengiwe, good evening and welcome.
Good evening and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I understand today was a busy day, but you've made time to be here. We appreciate it. Perhaps just to start with, of course, today was the first day of the workshop. So give us a roundup of what transpired there and how it went.
Okay, thank you so much. Like we've already indicated, this is a workshop on elections, but from an information angle. So what we are saying is that, we are looking at elections as a fundamental right that, the public get to exercise. But for them to effectively exercise that right, they need a good information ecosystem, which involves enjoying the rights of freedom of expression and also enjoying access to information. So today was the first day. It went very well as we had expected. We were graced with officials such as the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression and Access to Information in Africa. That is the mechanism of the African Commission that developed the framework that we are using in the context of this workshop. And we also had a commissioner from the Namibian Electoral Commission as well. And we also have the former Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression who was here in Namibia a few years ago to promote another African human rights instrument, which we are also using today. But as far as some of the panels are concerned, we had an opportunity to unpack the Declaration of Principles on Freedom of Expression and Access to Information in Africa, which is one of the very progressive instruments that the continent has on freedom of expression and access to information. We also had a very interesting panel discussion on the guidelines on access to information and elections in Africa. And this panel was not only looking at the history of the guidelines and the essence of having a guideline on access to information and elections, but also looking at the practical ways in which us as the Center for Human Rights at the University of Pretoria have used the guidelines. So in this regard, we have undertaken assessments where we are looking at different states and how they have performed as far as information is concerned in their elections. And we've done that for South Africa, we've done for Uganda, for Ghana, for the Gambia, and we have other countries also whose reports have not been finalized, but they are coming up. And participants also had an opportunity to engage on some of the aspects that are happening in their countries, like Eswatini, like in South Africa. And then in the afternoon, we had two also interesting sessions where we looked at specifically electoral management bodies and their responsibility to provide credible information to the electorate during elections, and also the role of election observer missions in the information space.
Jam-packed day.
It was.
Hlengiwe, talk to us about what specific challenges do election management bodies face in ensuring access to information during elections?
Like I said, we're using the framework of the guidelines on access to information and elections in Africa. And those guidelines are very specific as far as electoral management bodies are concerned. The guidelines identify the EMBs as one of the stakeholders that have a responsibility to proactively, I'm using that word, proactively provide information to the electorate during, before and after elections. So throughout the whole electoral cycle, they're supposed to provide information to the public. And some of the challenges, it's not them per se, but it's actually the EMBs maybe failing to perform their mandate of providing information to the public. You find that there are times when there are glitches in the election and there is no explanation provided by the electoral management body, yet the public is supposed to be informed. So the guidelines provide categories of information. Like if we're looking at the Namibian Electoral Commission now? Do we have all the information about how the electoral management body is functioning? Do we have information around the funding of the electoral management body, their financial status? Even the salaries of the electoral management body officials are supposed to be public knowledge, by the way. You are supposed to get to the platform and find how much they get paid. That is in the public interest to know. And also information around voter education as well, because like right now Namibia is preparing for elections. There's a lot of information that people require, and it is the responsibility of the electoral management body to churn out that information on the basis of the fact that to effectively exercise the right to vote, you need access to credible elections. So they have to have a very good information management system so that they perform that mandate to the public. But also, the other challenge, moving on to the challenges, we are moving in a different world right now, where there is, the traditional media is still functioning, but we also have a whole lot of information that is being churned by anybody and everybody out there. So there's proliferation of misinformation and disinformation out there. And it is the responsibility of the electoral management body to ensure that they provide timely, credible information to the public. Otherwise, if they leave a gap, an information gap, somebody is going to fill that gap. And when they fill that gap, they may fill it with disinformation, they may fill it with misinformation, and that undermines the integrity of the information that the electorate are supposed to receive in an election. So they are supposed to take very proactive steps in ensuring that there is no information gap by providing the information. But when there is misinformation and disinformation that has been spread or perpetuated in the public space, they also have to take proactive steps to correct and provide the necessary information.
Hlengiwe, just lastly, how do you envision the outcomes of this workshop influencing, future electoral practices in African countries?
Yes, thank you for that question. Like for this workshop, one of the outcomes is to contribute to an improved or enhanced information ecosystem in the context of elections. The electoral management body, their role is to administer elections, to ensure that they are free, fair, and credible elections. So we are hoping that out of this workshop, that we are providing an opportunity to deliberate on these issues. We are going to have electoral management bodies that are going to prioritize information credibility or the integrity of information during elections. Not only the electoral management body, but also election observers and also monitors, election monitors and observers. That is, they monitor the elections. They also consider issues of information, whether issues around freedom of expression or access to information. They should be able to assess the electoral environment based on the information ecosystem that they find within the country in which they are monitoring the elections. But also the electoral management bodies, we are hoping that out of this workshop, they come out of this workshop with a better understanding of how information is important in an election. And not only just a better understanding, but also go back to their countries, because we have a number of electoral commissions from the SADC region. Go back to their countries and actually implement, take practical steps. We are at a position where, there's all this abstract rhetoric, talk around information, but they need to take practical steps in ensuring that they actually actualize the issue of access to information and elections. Not only access to information and elections, that has to be balanced with the right to protect personal information. When you are, for example, when you are looking at the voters' roll, the voters' roll is necessary to be released in the public domain in the context of an election, but that has to be done also bearing in mind the protection of personal information, and that they have to do it in accordance with the legal framework that governs protection of personal information. And if there is a body that is mandated, like in the case of South Africa, where you have an information regulator whose mandate is to oversee issues around protection of personal information, that entity can provide the relevant guidance on balancing the right of access vis-a-vis protection of personal information. That is, you release the voters' roll to the public, what kinds of information are supposed to be protected. But as well as you are dealing with all this information out there, you also need to take into account issues of the digital vulnerabilities or digital threats, cyber security issues as well. Electoral management bodies have to be capacitated on such issues, because we don't want to hear a situation whereby there are cyber security vulnerabilities at the electoral management body. That actually compromises the integrity of the election. So they have to be capacitated on those issues, because we are now moving into a very different phase where there is the influence and use of digital technologies, there is the use of artificial intelligence within the information space. So electoral management bodies have to be mindful of those elements and how to navigate the different information ecosystem that we have because of the digital age.
Hlengiwe Dube, I appreciate your time with us this evening. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
All the best with day 2 of the forum.
Thank you so much.
Well, on that lovely note, we've also come to the end of this evening's program. Join us tomorrow from myself and the team.